Good afternoon, my friends. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor for me to be able to speak with you again and to address you for a few moments. It is with great pleasure that we watch you work on improving your own abilities to communicate with the world of spirit. We know it's a long, tedious process. It's not something that's done overnight, but neither is learning the piano something that's done overnight. It is something that requires practice, and so does learning to attune to the world of spirit. For some people, like myself, who used to be a medium, I was fortunate to be born with the gifts. So my practice was very different than what you are experiencing, because for me, I naturally heard spirit and saw spirit. And I had to learn how to know when I could speak about what I was seeing, and when it was much wiser for me to keep it to myself. But it is a process for all of us, whether you are born with the gifts or not, to learn how to handle them and to learn how to be able to use them. We encourage you to sit in the energy as much as possible, to sit in the divine crystalline energy as we did today, even if it's just for 5 minutes, because that accessing of it, you become familiar with how to get there. And in the days to come, being able to go into the power quickly and allowing us to speak through you to answer people's questions when they come to you with concerns is something that will be very valuable, not only for yourself, but for the people that you will help. So we ask you to be diligent in your practice. We're not asking for you to sit for an hour a day. We're not asking you to sit for 15 minutes a day. But the fact that you go in on a daily basis, even if it's just 5 minutes, builds the rapport and builds the pathways to accessing your crystalline energy and therefore connecting to us. So I hope you will consider to continue this and to make it a daily practice, even if it's just for a few minutes. We are ready for your questions.
Thank you, Carl and friends, for being here. We really appreciate you. The first question is from Karen E. It feels like a veil is being lifted very quickly all over the world, as if all the wolves in sheep's clothing, they are unable to hide any longer. We can see them. They're ulterior motives. As good as that sounds, it's very difficult to navigate through this negative energy. Can you help us? What can we do as individuals to raise our vibration and maybe help those around us out of the muck and the mire? Thank you.
My friend, there are several techniques that you can use to assist with what you are speaking about. You must remember, as I'm sure you do, that you are a spiritual being having a physical experience, as all human beings are. Your true nature is energetic. Your true nature is divine crystalline energy. Your soul is part of that energy, and your soul radiates the aura, which you know. The first suggestion that we have for you when you get bombarded with negative energy is for you to quickly go into a meditative state. And by that, I simply mean by changing your frequency, as we did just recently, as you did when you became divine crystalline energy. Think about it. That process took you 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds the most. So you can take that 30 seconds and focus on your divine crystalline energy, but focus on the auric field, which is the perimeter of your divine crystalline energy. When you are being bombarded with negativity, concentrate on your auric field and start to put a coating on it. I am sure you are aware of that candy that was called M&Ms with the coating on it. You are going to put a candy coating over your auric field, around your bubble of light. You are going to coat it with any color that you wish. And then you're going to coat it with mirrors, so that the negative energy that is bombarding you will bounce off it and leave you alone. That is the first technique that you can use to deal with negative energy. The second technique is to realize, as I explained a few months ago, that you are the burning bush. You are divine crystalline energy. You are the light. You are eternal light. That light will never go out. So what you can do is visualize yourself. Well, the easiest way to think about it is kind of like a rheostat. If you had a gas stove and you were able to turn the knob and the gas flames get bigger, I want you to turn that knob of your auric field so that your light becomes 8 feet tall, taller than you, bigger than you. You are completely surrounded in this glowing, radiant light that will overpower anything that is around it. I will assume that you have had an experience where you walk into a room and you meet someone you never met and you can't stand that person. What's happening? Your energetic field, your aura is coming into contact with that other person and you do not like their energy. So what you are doing by having this explosion of light and radiating your energy to 8 feet tall and around is you're projecting your positivity, and the people that are around you that are projecting the negativity are going to get uncomfortable, just like you were uncomfortable in the other situation. And that will also make them a little bit uneasy, and perhaps it will make their negative energy go and diminish some, so it will not bother you. So you can protect your auric field, and you can also expand it way out to become the light into the world. The world needs as much light as it can get. And we have been stressing that you need to share your light, to be your light, to live your light constantly, to help in the changes as you described. You talked about a veil being lifted, and we can see and understand the negative people more. This is true. But it also is that their negative energy is also collecting together, growing, if you want to use that term. as is the light. The times you are living in is a tug of war between light and darkness. And eventually, you know that the light will win. But that doesn't mean that it will be an easy battle. In the times you are living, there will be ebbs and flows, just like this in the sea where there's high tides and low tides. And sometimes the negative energy will be on high tide, and sometimes it'll be on low tide. And until this total change has occurred, that is the way it is going to be. Eventually, the negative energy will not be as strong. Eventually, it'll get weaker and weaker and weaker until it's finally absorbed and done away with. But that is a process that will take time for you. So we want you to be aware of not only using the techniques we suggested, but to on your daily encounters to talk with people, to help people, to be an example of what it is to live a life that is in line with spirituality and not in line with any book that so prevailed in your plane. Do you understand?
Thank you. Next question is from Luvera. If the universe is billions of years old, how long have angels/spirits been in existence? Thank you.
You have heard of something called the Big Bang. In that Big Bang and that explosion, everything was created. The planets and souls. All the souls that are in existence, no matter on what dimension or what plane, whether they are in a human body or in a body that has another form on another distant planet, they were all created at the same time. Now, speaking about Earth and humans, obviously lots of souls were created and not as many bodies were. So as people populated the Earth, more souls came into being. As people transitioned into the spirit world, their souls went back into the world of spirit and so forth. So the souls take turns in incarnating and they come back for special reasons, but that's not what you're really talking about. The angels are souls that have never lived on a physical life. They have never lived in a physical body. They are spiritual beings and they have remained in the spiritual realm, and they are ones who assist the souls that do have physical existence, because when you come back into the physical body, you go into a spiritual amnesia where you forget everything spiritual that you ever knew in the spirit world, and you live your life to see if you will pass the test of living a spiritual life. If you remembered everything, you'd have a cheat sheet and you would obviously pass the test. So that is why you forget everything and do not have memory of it. And angels are here to assist, to kind of remind people, physical people, who reach out to them for assistance and help and guidance on how to maneuver their life, how to steer their life to be on a more spiritual path. Some people use angels, some people consult certain mediums who are in touch with the spiritual realm. There are different ways of communicating with the spiritual realms, but the angels were created in the same time as all other souls were. Do you understand?
Thank you. Next question from Uvera. Explain exorcism and what is possessing people since the devil is non-existent. Thank you.
You bring up an interesting question because you are correct, the devil doesn't exist. However, walk out into your community, especially in your part of the world, and ask how many people, take a survey and see how many people think the devil does exist. And you will find a very high percentage of certain groupings of people still very much cling to their devil. They can't let go of them because without them, they will not live a spiritual life as much as they can, being guided by false rules. But for some people, it does exist. It exists in their minds, therefore exists. Remember that when I was on the earth plane, I used to say, teach thoughts are things. So when people think there's a devil, they are attracting people from the lower levels of the spirit world who are not very spiritual, who love to play tricks on people, and they like to impersonate people, and they like to create all kinds of mischief. So they will influence the person. You ask about possession. And again, possession is similar to what you're experiencing now. The person who is talking to you, in a sense, is possessed because I am using his body. I am manipulating it, but I am doing it with his permission and for a spiritual purpose. People who think they are possessed can be in a sense of communication with a negative entity. And that negative entity can try to create havoc in that person's life. An exorcist is one who will try to get that connection between the negative spirit and the person disconnected. And that is what they're about. But they are all buying into the idea that the devil really does exist. And therefore, that energy, that thought energy, opens the door to allow the negative, the lower entities to influence the situation. Part of the pathway of a person who is walking the spiritual light is to keep that door towards negativity closed. They understand there is no devil. They understand that that doesn't exist. It doesn't enter their consciousness. It's not something they even think about. And therefore, they are protected from all that because they don't give any energy to it to open a door. It is important to know that. So it is a it is the exorcism and all that stuff does exist because of their belief system, because they are addressing it and opening the door to it. But for a person who's on a spiritual path and understands the light, They have no need for the darkness. And they just look at what happens there as unfortunate communication. And quite frankly, it's their ignorance. It's their belief in that because there's a God, there has to be a devil. And it's not the case, as you know. Do you understand?
Thank you. So this question's from Carol, and it's very interesting considering what you've just said in response to Luvera's question. So this was just brought to my attention because it involves an elementary school local in our area. And there's a group that's advertising an after-school program. The group is the Satanic Temple. And I went on the website. I have no problem with attendance as stated on the website. However, they say they're science-based. They don't like religion, and any school that has a religious group come in after school, the Satanic Temple wants to come in and like push back on religion. But if they're about science, then they must know everything is frequency, and everything's energy and gives off a frequency. So they don't like religion, yet they've taken one of its most iconic symbols, Satan, and made it their own. They've developed a cartoon-like character of Satan for the children. Looks like a friendly toy. This symbol carries a frequency of darkness, of malevolent manipulation, fear, and control. You know, I looked on Wikipedia, and apparently this group brought children to the Texas state capitol. They were protesting something, and they had the children chanting F you and hail Satan. These are elementary school children, very impressionable minds. I don't think the children know what they're chanting. So there was a lot of thought that went into the name of this temple, of the Satanic Temple, into their logos, their symbols, their rituals. So if they're about science, then why didn't they choose a name like Quantum Kids or something? It just, their tenets that they state seem to be way out of whack with what I'm feeling is the real intent of the organization. I'm sorry this is so long, but I would like to know if you have any thoughts on this.
Your assessment is very correct. What these group has done is they looked at the system and realized how they need to play it. They are very much a religion themselves. They believe in an evil being. They realize that if they want to say they're against religion, the opposite of religion supposedly is science. So they claim they're scientific, but they're really not. They are just claiming that. The people on the lower levels that try to influence these types of things like to raise havoc. They like to deceive people. They like to trick people, if you use these terms. So part of what this group has done is claim they're scientific when they're really just another religion. There have been people who have worshipped that entity for centuries. Fortunately, it hasn't been a large group of people, and most of the time they end up having very negative experiences, and therefore they eventually walk away. It is unfortunate that the children are being exposed to this in ways that are designed to make it attractive to children. Unfortunately, the children of this time are being exposed to many different types of challenges. Think of it this way. I spoke before about you are living in a tug of war between the lightness and the dark. You are. But part of that war is not just for adults. The war is also going on to the children. There's a tug of war for children of whether they will go into the light or into the dark. And there are many different types of things that are happening that could lead to a disturbing situation. The one you mentioned is one of them. The powers that be on the dark side realize that in order for them to be successful, they not only need adults, they need children. So it is important also for the people in the light to not ignore children, but to bring them into spiritual practices, to teach them good from bad and right from wrong. Because so many children and young people don't know the difference. There's not clarity on that issue anymore. And part of this has been the natural evolution of people discarding religion, but they just put it in a garbage dump and continue with their life. Many people do not pick up spirituality when they throw out their religion, and therefore they lose their moral compass if they do not follow a spiritual path without any religion. So this is what has been causing the ambiguity for many younger people, because their parents were not, quote, religious, and they weren't, quote, spiritual, so they were just being. And therefore, there was no guideposts and no examples of how one should live their life and have consequences for their actions. So therefore, it's caused this problem. You understand?
Thank you. This is also a national organization. Okay, we have a question from Laura. In the Catholic Church, the wine is referred to as the blood of Christ. It sounds like a sacrificial practice. Why did the Catholic Church make it this way? Thank you.
The Catholic Church very much wanted it to be a sacrifice. Jesus was sacrificed to forgive all the sins in the world in perpetuality. That's what they want you to believe. So going back in time from Jesus, further back into the religions of the Jewish people, they had sacrifices where they took animals and they slaughtered them and they cooked them. And that is how a person's sin was forgiven. There was a sacrifice. You took an animal, shed his blood, and the sin was forgiven. The priest took the meat off the barbecue and had lunch, and the person who sinned didn't get to have lunch with the priest. But that was part of the system that they had. So there was a long tradition of having a sacrifice to forgive sins. So when Christianity came about, they just kept that tradition alive by saying that this was the blood of Jesus, and that by you consuming it, you are taking the Holy Spirit of Christ into your body, and you are absorbing it that way. That is a very it doesn't really help much in the actuality. It is very interesting, though, that when they have the ceremony of communion, they take the glass of wine and they take the wafers and they put it in a little dark box, which represents the medium's cabinet, because they want it to transform into what they say it is. They understood the psychic principles of a cabinet, of ectoplasm happening, and being withdrawn to create certain things, whether it's a shape of a hand or a shape of an entire body that can speak and lecture. That they understood, but yet they went and killed all the mediums that they could find. But yet they kept that little box going, and in their ceremony. And they also take I don't remember the right word for this, but they make incense and they make the smoke for the ectoplasm, and they use that in their ceremonies too. So they keep certain aspects of mediumship, even though they can't stand the word and they can't stand mediums. But they still keep some of the rituals. They probably today don't even realize where that all came from. But they go back to your question. It really goes back to the sacrifice that was meant, and the fact that Christianity wants you to believe that Jesus died for your sins. Do you understand?
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question? If not, that is our last question. And we so appreciate your coming through, Carl and friends. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you. We love you.
Thank you very much. We just want to let you know that we have spoken to the medium as in the meditation, and next month we will continue on the last question and explaining that in much more depth in the lecture that will be happening. And also yes, that we wanted to let you know that. We also want to let you encourage you again to practice going into the energy. Again, even just for a few minutes, it is extremely important, especially in your time that you are living now. And we are most grateful for the opportunity to speak with you, to come through and to give you some guidance and answer your questions. It is a privilege for us to be able to do that. And it is our hope that our answers and guidance will help you and strengthen you to beam out your light even brighter into the world. With that, I will leave you with my blessings and my peace. So be it.